Okay, welcome to part 2. Yay! I didn't realize I was going to be ranting for so long in that last video. If you didn't watch it, go ahead, I guess, if you're interested in negatives about the game. Now we're going to talk about positives about the game. Yay! As I said in the last video, I really liked this game a lot. Like, more than a 20-minute rant video should have. But I think that might say how strong the good points are in this game. That there are majorly glaring gameplay issues with this game. But I still loved it to fucking death. So, I don't know how to structure this video like the last one, so it's going to be a lot of just nonsense. This game is very fun, just genuinely enjoyable. From start to finish, I had a huge smile on my face. I thought this game was insanely charming. And the best thing about it, which is going to sound like a really shitty thing, it didn't bother me. Like those things that aren't like the old Paper Mario games that a lot of people talk about. And it's basically the biggest criticism about these games. That didn't bother me that much. Like, I wasn't longing for the old ones while playing this. I was okay with the way it was, and I liked it for the most part. So I guess I'll start with the gameplay, and the story is more, so I'll get to that after. I like the puzzle-solving mechanics. I think they're really fun. The ring mechanic that you do is very rewarding, and there are parts where I was less interested in it. I think about maybe an hour into the game, I saw most of what they could throw at me in terms of the normal fights, so I kind of lost interest in that, but it was still fun to learn. It just kind of became like a more like, oh, this is just more time consuming, and I was just like not super into it. But the boss fights, on the other hand, the boss fights are awesome. Actually fucking awesome. I think they're really well made, most of them. There's like one or two that I thought were a little too gimmicky or just like weirdly balanced that I wasn't really having a ton of fun. But there are a pretty good amount of boss fights, probably around 20, and they're all really, really fun. Maybe more like 15, but regardless. It's like a role reversal, so you're going towards the enemy in the middle on the outside, and you move around each thing, and there's arrows in the ground. And it's like a lot of thinking and a lot of brain power. And like it's like satisfying. They usually have a gimmick, but every once in a while the gimmick is like still open enough for you to be able to make these choices and figure out what to do next. And it's just really good. They're really fun. They nailed that. And like I think that's I said this in my last video, but I was saying that I think the game would have benefited from not having random battles, but not having like situational battles, all just having like scripted battles or, battles that you have to do. Because whenever they have it planned out and they know what you want to do and they give you a certain amount of freedom, but there's a gimmick to it and stuff, it's very satisfying. And almost all of them I figured out on my own. There are hints that you can get, but there were a few that definitely stumped me and I was just kind of like punching through it until I figured it out. But most of them I was figuring out in my head, and I was like, oh, okay. And like one of the final bosses was very puzzle heavy, and it was all about kind of what you would learn throughout the game, and it was very satisfying. And on top of that, they balance a lot of these bosses, because in the other Paper Mario games, the last two, it was a lot of random battles, but they actually give you some that aren't turn-based encounters. They give you ones that are like, you just swing your hammer at things, and they like the paper mache guys, they just like run at you and you have to hit them with your hammer. And I was saying to myself when Color Splash was coming out that if all the gameplay was just hitting shit with your hammer and jumping on stuff, it would have been so much more fun. I think I was right, because it's a lot of fun to do that. I wouldn't mind like an action RPG-esque, Zelda-esque Mario game now, because it's like, it's not bad. It's kind of fun. It's not like amazingly engaging, but I don't think it needs to be. There were usually situations where it was just like, this guy's in your way. You just got to kind of time your hammer hit and hit his back, and then he dies or something. It was a great way to break up the sections. There were like legit boss fights or pseudo boss fights that were like actually just that. There was no turn-based battles to it. And that was really fun. I genuinely enjoyed that. Way more than like anything I played in the last 2 games. What was another thing? But yeah, overall, the battle system surprised the hell out of me. I wasn't sure what I was going to think of it. I wasn't sure how fast I was going to get sick of it. But it's pretty good. And like I said in my last video, this is a big part of why I like it too. Like I said in my last video, it's not great. Like I was just saying earlier too. I got tired of it kind of fast. I thought I saw most of what I could see in maybe the first part of the game. After that, I was kind of avoiding battles. The thing is, you can avoid battles in this game, and they know that. It's not like they have this whole game balanced to be really easy, but I think it's also because they know that their battle system might not be the thing you want to do every 2 seconds in your game. I feel like there's not as many enemies as other Paper Mario games. Just in general, I think there's less. There's a lot of sections where there are no enemies at all. Most of the time, especially near the end of the game, there weren't even like many walking around enemies. There was a lot of event battles. There wasn't many scenarios where I was just like fighting random guys around, which I think it benefited from. And if you did hit a random enemy accidentally and you didn't want to fight it or something, running is almost entirely free. And you might take some damage, and that could be, the disadvantage of doing that. But people say like, oh, the enemy disappears, or it, you don't get coins taken away from you when you do it or something. And it's like the point of running in this game. I wouldn't see a situation, because you're usually not in a situation where you're about to die. I'm not gonna lie. That's like does not happen in this game. So not often, at least. So really the only situation you'd be in where you want to run is you don't want to waste your time. You're in the middle of doing something and you just want to run away. You just want to flee. I think that's perfect. I think that works with the game. That is a decent idea for this mechanic. I actually wouldn't mind if there was just a skip battle button. Maybe it'd have to be balanced a little bit, but that's basically what the flee is. It's just a borderline random RNG based like skip. But it works really well. And there are plenty of times where you can't run. I wish they'd tell you that before you tried, because when you try, like you lose the turn, and Olivia's like, you can't run. And I'm like, why did it even let me? But I think that works in its favor, and a lot of the time that is a good part of the balancing. Is it like it knows what it is, and it knows it wants to be an adventure game, which is again why I'm so confused it even has some of those mechanics in the first place. It feels a little unneeded, a little weird, but regardless, I also didn't mind the weapon durability thing. People were getting on the game's case when it's shown off too about this. Your boots and hammers have durability. I wasn't that bugged. I would have been more bugged if you couldn't switch mid-battle, like, because you can't really tell when your thing's about to like die unless I missed that. So luckily you can just like swap out your things like before you attack. You don't even have to consider it. Like there are so many instances where I was like, okay, I'm going to attack him with this shiny metal boot, and then I do it, and then I get to him to attack him, and I don't have a shiny metal boot, and I'm like, fuck. So I have to switch or something. But luckily they let you, and that's a pretty smart idea on their part. Anything else in the game that's like baby mode, as people might say, like things that make the game easier, I didn't really use them too much, so I'm not like a great judge. I used the additional time thing because I feel like that was like vital. They knew people were going to use that. That's where most of my coins went, probably. It's a lot of thinking in a short amount of time. I just didn't want to waste the time going through a move and possibly dying. But yeah, the game is super fun to play. Overall, the secrets are decently fun. Something about Color Splash that I think it needed, and I remember saying this when the game came out too, it didn't really have a collectible. It didn't have anything to collect besides the initial thing, like the initial coins and stuff. Sticker Star didn't really either. I think that's something that was made Super Paper Mario more fun, were the cards, because it was like there weren't a lot of collectibles because there weren't really equiptables, and they were just missing that meat that an RPG needs. You need that satisfaction of finding stuff and going off the beaten path, and I think that's Super Paper Mario did a great job adding the cards. And I'm not gonna lie, this game basically has the same thing. It has trophies, which is literally Smash Bros. Trophies kind of thing. And you collect them throughout the game, and they're usually your reward for doing special things, and they're part of 100%, and each area has a percentage of what, and I'm going back in the game today, I was playing it earlier, and I'm trying to collect everything. It's actually pretty fun. It's a little convoluted sometimes, because sometimes there's shit like hidden in the weirdest areas, but it's fun. It's getting me to explore areas I might have not explored before. And it's rewarding. That's all I want, is something that's kind of rewarding. People are like, well, what do they do? And it's like, dude, why do they need to do something? Like, I don't understand why the satisfaction can't be in, like, that MacGuffin you're getting. At the end of the day, it's all the same shit. You're working towards an end goal. The end goal is just the final boss and the credits. So leveling up in experience is part of that. But in this game, the collectible whatever is the trophy. I don't know. It all, in the end of the day, it's all collectibles in a video game, and it could be boiled down to very similar things. Obviously, that's not super fair to say, but like in some ways, that's kind of how it is. But whatever. I'm not gonna get into the semantics of that. Point is, I like the collectibles, and I think they're rewarding, and I had fun collecting them, and I still have fun collecting them. And I think it's a great addition to that game, and I think without it, would have been kind of boring. Could you imagine every time you found a trophy, you found like a fucking fire flower or something? Something you probably wouldn't use in battle anyway, and you have enough coins to buy in the store like immediately, so why the hell would you even want that? They know that there's going to be something, you need something more, and I think that helps. The other thing I didn't mind was the confetti. The confetti mechanic was actually pretty good. It is almost identical to the paint, except now it like blocks paths. I guess it kind of did in Color Splash, but it doesn't more often. I think you have less of it, the confetti, so they're able to play with situations. Like, for example, there's this part at one point in the game where you go into this house and this place, and the door shuts behind you, and there's this big open area that doesn't have any floor, so you have to throw all your confetti to fill. Literally, they know how much confetti you have. You cannot have more than you should, and they give you a full confetti thing right before you get in there, and you fill that entire hole. In that little area is all about conserving your confetti. You have to like get up the stairs, so you have to find confetti. You have to find where to get confetti in the little areas you're in. It's really fun, and it's really nice. It beats the fucking paint, man. It feels weird, like a weird addition. It doesn't feel like it meshes with the game really well. You immediately get it. They're just like, oh, here's a bag of confetti, and I'm like, what? It's like a big part of the game. It's pretty fun, though. I actually kind of liked it. It never felt intrusive. It usually was like, and it was another thing that, unlike the coins, there were plenty of situations where there was a hole and I didn't have enough confetti and didn't know where to get it. I guess that could be your incentive to fight, because you get a fuck ton from fighting, but in the end, it's not that big a deal. Like, it's really not. You end up like, you don't really need to fill every hole. And there was never a situation when I was playing the game where I battled because I didn't have enough confetti to proceed. That never happened to me. And maybe it happened to somebody, but that did not happen to me. And usually if a game would intend for that kind of thing to happen, they would have a situation planned out where that happens. What else was this going to say? But yeah, I guess that's most of the mechanics of the gameplay. I like it a lot, and it surprised me, because that was the thing I was most concerned about with this game. I don't mind things about Color Splash, but the battling and the gameplay and just the progression killed that game. And speaking of progression, one thing that I definitely do miss, but I don't think it's needed, but I don't think it wouldn't hurt. It wouldn't hurt, and it just segments the game a little bit better. I miss chapters. I just miss chapters. It just made it more organized. I liked the little in-between things. Peach had a very small role in this game. A stupidly small role in the last few games. I feel like it's not like unlike them to give Peach a bigger role. Like, she has a pretty cute role in Mario Odyssey. You know, she's like she has a decent role in most games. Even in Paper Jam, she had like more of a role. And I think it would have benefited from even bringing back those Peach sections or something. Maybe in between chapters, you'd see what Peach is up to. You would learn about the Origami King, the main antagonist. Would have helped a little bit, because definitely the antagonist might have been probably the least interesting part of the game story, maybe. Just kind of not just kind of whatever, but I'll talk about that. I'll talk about the story in a little bit. Would have benefited from that, but the best thing they added was there's no more world map. I'm so happy about that. I was happy about that when they announced it or showed it, I guess. I am so happy. It makes the game so much better. I didn't realize how big of an issue that was until I played this game. I mean, I always knew it was kind of lame, but I didn't really I wasn't like every time I was on the world map. But oh my god, it makes such a big difference. The fact that this has an interconnecting world, one big, basically open world adventure, that is so huge. And it's a shame that they wasted 2 games not doing this, because that would have helped with the pacing of both the last 2 games. The sad thing about all those kind of critiques about the last 2 games is that they had games that had it before, and they just ignore them. It's like they literally ignore the first 2 Paper Mario games exist when making these. Very rarely do they take things from it, besides like minuscule things like stupid shit that, whatever. I'm not going to get into that. The point, this is about Origami King. Anyway, yeah, I love the interconnected world. Also, the world is amazing in this game. Might be my favorite, probably my second favorite world in a Paper Mario game in terms of originality and set piece design. Just in general, it is meticulously designed, and it just looks so freaking good. It falls a little too generic for me. Everything feels very Zelda referencey in a lot of ways. They all feel like they're referencing some sort of game or something. It's very strange. But you go to a grass place. You go to a water place. You do go to a lava level at some point. But in between that, you get a cruise ship. You go on a cruise ship at one point. You sail the ocean, which isn't super new, but it's pretty interesting. You go to an autumn-themed, Japanese-inspired area where you go to a samurai theme park. It is all over the place, and I love that. And I'm glad that they brought that back. One weird thing, it's not necessarily a bad thing, because in the end, I actually like it. There's less areas than other Paper Mario. There's 4 areas, technically. 5, kind of. 4 or 5 areas, technically. Mostly 4 that you go to. And they're way bigger and sprawling than anything else in any Paper Mario game before it. They're almost split up into they're basically double the length of a Paper Mario chapter, because you fight a mini boss, and that would be the length of a chapter in Paper Mario 2. But this game is able to fit all this content in 4 worlds, and it makes it so they can focus on those specific worlds a lot better, in my opinion. The last world is less interesting, I feel. It just doesn't have as many set pieces. I feel it's a big area kind of, but compared to the second world, it's huge. There's so much to explore. And the first the second and third, I guess you would say. Second and third, there's so much to explore, and it's a lot of fun. But yeah, I was so happy with that. And the way it's paced is amazing. They really don't waste any time. There's no bumping you back to the the overworld or the hub world or anything. You really don't need to go back to Toad Town at all. Maybe once to get the boat, but besides that, you really don't go back to Toad Town. There's no hub. You constantly are moving forward. And I love games like that. I might have said this probably in some video before. I really like linear games. I really appreciate a good linear game. I think it's kind of a lost art in some ways. Everyone's trying to make these open world games. But one linear story where the story is just dragging you along has such a good feeling. I don't know why. It almost feels like a movie, maybe. But it's just fun. It's it's you're going through the pace. It's a lot of fun to experience games like that. And I always appreciated that about Paper Mario in some ways. You backtracked and went back and forth between areas. You were always exploring something new. It was never going back and doing other stuff. I just really like that. It wasn't it was a big open world, but it was like an open world that it was almost a spider web. I'm trying to imagine it. This sounds like ridiculous. It's like there's a central area. Like, think of it. I'm not going to draw this, but think about it. There's a central area. Then there's like lines going out from all ends of the circle in the middle. And then there's like lines connecting those to make like an octagon or something around it. It's like a spider web. That's kind of how it is. It's like there are branching paths and there are connecting paths to each of those. It's super satisfying. It works really well. And luckily this Paper Mario game does it pretty damn well. But honestly, the set design and stuff, I guess that segues pretty nicely into, man, this game looks nice. Holy shit. I mean, Color Splash looked nice. That was probably my favorite thing about it, was how it looked. Oh my god, this game is nice. They really do such a good job. People, I've heard critique and like criticize the idea that everything's made of paper and they think it's like a tired gimmick. Nuh-uh, not at all. They work so hard with this stuff. They make sure everything looks original and you forget it's paper. There are plenty of times where I'm like in the water and I'm just like, I'm accepting this as water. But if I look at it closely, if I'm like paying attention or something, it's like the waves are like ripped up pieces of paper, or like the splash is like pieces of confetti, and I'm like, that's fucking amazing. That's so much detail. That is, oh, it's so good. It does not, for a game that came out in like 2 months, this game feels like it was in development for like, it probably was, but for like 5 years. Like, it seriously is so meticulously designed in its world map. I love that about it. I absolutely love that about it. It's a blast to play through because of that. That's a huge reason why it's so much fun. Areas are really memorable and they're like scenic and there's like nice lighting. And hey, I guess I'm segueing again. The story that goes with it's really nice. The story in this game is great, actually. It's not like super compelling like the actual main plot, but the whole point of Paper Mario is it's almost like a cartoon or like an anime or something. It's like you're going through each little story arc and it kind of has an overarching story arc that goes along with it. You meet characters, they have story arcs, you have like situations, and that's a whole thing. And that's kind of how this game goes. It's one long story with an interconnected plot, but each location you're doing little tasks and doing specific stories that kind of play out in each location. And it's so good. It's so good. It has such a good, like, just well done little thing. And there's so much good writing. A lot of people will give a lot of the game shit for the character design stuff. I'm kind of starting to come to the conclusion that that's not something they can control anymore. And even if we beg and plead, there's just so much legal shit with the IP that maybe they are putting into play now, that they just don't want to do that. There could be so many reasons. They could have a copyright on Toad. So if you do too much to Toad, you start getting out of that copyright and starts to get a little fuzzy, and who knows who owns that Toad now. So it's like that could be an issue for Nintendo. Who knows? I have no idea. Point is, they seem to be pretty gung-ho with this stuff, but they're working at it, and they're working with it. Like, there's only toads. But the whole story's about toads. And like, you're in a world that is run by toads. There is lore to the toads. The toads are part of like the Aztec like architecture. And there's so much to the lore, I guess, but it just involves toads. And the characters that they do add, while generic, like the Bomb Bobby, have like a reason to be generic. And I'm not gonna like spoil the character's story or anything, but it's kind of compelling and kind of cool, and it like makes sense that he's just another Bomb, or like the Toad is just an explorer Toad. It doesn't really feel out of place. They did a pretty good job with that, and they worked with characters that were original, like Kamek. They saw Kamek was an exception for some reason. He's just a magic Koopa that has a name. He's like, fuck it, we'll put him as a partner. Well, I guess that's spoilers, but I'm sure you saw from trailers and stuff. But yeah, it was like, that's great. They're actually using Kamek and Bowser Jr. And they're using what they are given, which is convenient and nice. I am glad the Koopalings took a backseat in this game. I don't really care for them, and they're never given enough dialogue or character to make them interesting at all, so I'm honestly glad they're not in this game. I would love a game where they play a way bigger role, or like one of them does, like Wendy is the main antagonist or something. That'd be interesting, but they're probably not going to do that. But yeah, the story is really nice. Even the main story that I was kind of talking about, it's pretty nice. You know, it's about like Olivia and her brother, the Origami King, which, does he even have a name? Oh yeah, Oli or whatever. Ollie. Yeah, it was like, it was kind of decently nice, decently told. It felt a little like Color Splash, but not as bad. More interesting. There was like some philosophy and some lore to these characters that like made them kind of interesting. Again, nothing crazy. There's I want to talk about spoilers so bad. Maybe I'll do a separate video about it. It's a really cool ending. And it's really fun. But yeah, all the characters, the only character that I felt like got a little bit of a shaft was Peach. Peach really didn't have much line. She had 1-2 lines, maybe. Very similar lines to what the ones she had in Color Splash, which is almost funny. Bowser had less than I'd probably want, but more than the last few games, so I'm okay with that. Like, he was more of a character in this game, and the parts he was in were very, very funny. And honestly, if you wanted to experience a game about Bowser's Side Story, just play that. He has like so much character in that game. It's like, if they want to focus on characters like the new characters like Olivia and stuff, totally fine. The only problem was, I think Ollie, her brother, just didn't really have enough screen time. He showed up like once throughout the adventure, and he was kind of like, oh, don't follow me. But really, he came out of nowhere in the beginning. You learn stuff about him, but it doesn't really go into play until the very end. He has a really, I guess he has a change of heart, spoiler, video game character has change of heart, happens in like a heartbeat. Like, it doesn't feel like it's very natural. Either way, not that I'm like super criticizing this, but I will say Super Paper Mario has the best antagonists. Thousand Year Door has pretty good antagonists, but they're kind of just like bad guys. Not really super interesting. I think Count Bleck and his cronies are the most interesting some of the most interesting characters in that series. Just cool characters. But yeah, I think that's about it. The music. Oh, how did I forget the music? The music and just like the cinematic visual direction of everything in this game is fucking amazing. Like, the cutscenes are really nice. The way cutscenes are portrayed and the cinematography in them is really cool most of the time. The music is so freaking good. I mean, it was good in Color Splash, but I think this game has more like moments, I guess I could say. Like, Olivia has like a song that they like reprise in certain scenes that are more emotional or are more intense or something. This soundtrack is amazing, and I highly suggest you listen to it. The battle music for the elementals, the Velementals or whatever they're called, are amazing. They're so good. Some of the music is baller and jammin' and kino and all those synonyms. I loved it. But yeah, I just want to I can't express how happy this makes me. I have gone so many years now just hating Paper Mario and hating what it's doing and hating the direction it's going in. And maybe it has something to do with my age. Maybe 5 years ago, I would have hated this game. Maybe I would have wished something else about it. But I think thanks to games like Bug Fable and A Hat in Time really gave me that feeling too. Those experiences that match the feeling I had when I played Thousand Year Door and Paper Mario, I can get those again in other fashions, like in other games. It doesn't have to be Paper Mario. And I'm kind of glad now. I mean, I would love for them to do another, but I'd want it to be made by the guys that know what they're doing, and I don't think these people know what they're doing when it comes to an old RPG. Old Paper Mario RPG, I mean. I think it's okay that those two games now exist in their own little realm. Super Paper Mario is like the black sheep, but I think this game is super good, and it's exciting because I think this is a stepping stone for them to work towards. I think there's a lot of good ideas here. Like I was literally talking about ideas that I think could be more fleshed out or I think could be better. And I truly believe they can do it because honestly, this is a great step in the right direction. This is almost the issues. If you watch my first impressions video, I'm sure you'd have a stupid smile on your face right now because these are all the issues that I was talking about I wanted to see in this game addressed, where there were very clear issues with color splash that weren't like because it's not Paper Mario 2, it was almost that it was holding on too much to it. And now it's finally kind of figured out its own little groove. It knows kind of what to take. And I still do think it has like some steps that it could take forward that could even make it more its own thing and better. And I can't wait, and I'm excited, and it's so good. Alpha Dream has gone bankrupt, and Paper Mario was shit like 4 months ago. And now, out of nowhere, we have this new Paper Mario game. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Where it stands in the hierarchy of Paper Mario, maybe I'm just hyped at the moment, but I kind of like it more than Super Paper Mario. The thing about this game that I think others fault from, the battling doesn't hold it back. The battling isn't a problem, I feel. Even if you don't really like it, it's not overabundant, and like there's so many ways to make it easier. There's so many ways to get through it. There's hints. There's so much you could do to experience the game's highlights, even if you don't like the battling. But if you don't like the battling, you probably just shouldn't play the game. But if you're like lukewarm about it, or you like it, but you're like, yeah, I mean, this isn't exactly what I want, I'd probably get tired of this. There's systems in place to make sure that you keep up with it, and it's a lot of fun to play. But yeah, I think I like it maybe more than Super Paper Mario, because I think that game's battling and its like platform mechanics weren't good. That might be a little harsh for you Super Paper Mario fans. I'm not the biggest fan of that game overall. I wish it was like, there are so many issues that I think could have been fixed with that game that I could make a whole video about that game. But yeah, if you have any interest in playing, so 1000 Year Door, Paper Mario 1 are on the same tier for me. Super Paper Mario used to be the one below it, but I think Origami King is either in the same tier or like above it by 1. And then it goes Color Splash and Sticker Star. I put on the same pedestal IMO, or same like garbage heap, because I really don't think one's better than the other. They're both so problematic and just stupid and not fun to play, IMO. But anyway, if you have any interest in getting Origami King, I suggest it as your resident PaperDawN, who used to literally go by Paper Luigi, who is just the biggest fanatic of Paper Mario. I just hit myself in the head with the game. Biggest fanatic of Paper Mario in the world. It's good, and it makes me happy to say that. I'm allowed to like Paper Mario again, I guess. Anyone's allowed to. I don't want you to take this the wrong way either. If you don't like the game, you don't like the game. If you liked the old ones, if you liked Color Splash, if you like Super Paper Mario, by all means. I think every game has its issues besides 1000 Year Door. I literally cannot think of many issues with that game if I tried. The games have their issues, but this one's good. Anyway, this is very rambly. This is a nice archive for a big moment in Paper Mario that I hope continues. It's obviously going to be quite a few years until we get a new one, but this is promising. Anyway, I hope you guys are staying safe and being good. Thank you for listening to me talk about Paper Mario way too much. Maybe I'll make a video about spoilers, but we'll see. Anyway, see you guys later.